Should I start now?
It looks like she started the recording, so I don't know.
Yeah.
We've got 6 people on. I'd say go ahead and maybe start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Paco Araujo. I'm from Monterrey, Mexico, in the north of Mexico. I want to present this. It's called MIES Project. It's not an English word. It's translated to harvest, but in Spanish, I think that it was meant to be in Spanish. So it's the tools lost in translation. I hope I'm going to present this as a poster in 15 days or so, in Colombia, in Bogotá, Colombia, en el Congreso de Dinámica de Sistemas de Latinoamérica. I wanted to share it with something before, so I could have time to have all the questions answered in my head, so I could give a better insight on the paper and such. So, well, the agenda is going to be, we're going to talk about the story behind the method, and then we're going to see how we could make this as playing music with CHORDS. It's, well, using a little tool set. It's nothing that you haven't seen. And then we're going to see the tool set in practice. Here I'm going to show you the model, the Stella architect model, so you can see the conclusions and such with very first-handed. So, well, here it goes. So I am a person outside of the academia. I work full-time, as I told you. I am very far from all of the things that exist around the system dynamics. So I felt in love as soon as I saw it. I think that I have heard this for a lot of times, that this was what I was waiting for. I already knew I was seeking for something like this, but I didn't know it existed. So right now I'm gonna try to tell my path, the path that I followed to be here. So I have a mentor here in Monterrey. He showed me some classical models, but he omitted the things that, well, he wasn't teaching me concepts. He was teaching me how to be proficient with telling the same stories, right? So then I travel a lot of time between system dynamics materials. I have a lot of books and papers and things that I found on the internet, and it was quite difficult because it wasn't in Spanish. So I did my best. I read, I translated those, and tried to understand what things were saying. Most of the times, it's hard to find quality, and within all the other sciences and topics and such, it's difficult to find quality and to find the right branch or well, the right branch to set a nest. So I have a reading list on my webpage where I have all the books that I have started, I have read, or I have or I got, and I have a folder with all the papers and such, papers, models. When I find a paper that has only the drawing, I try to make the model in Stella so I can understand a little bit more. If that wasn't enough, last year I received as a birthday present the MIT seminar series from Jay Forrester. I haven't finished those. Well, I think I only have started the first disc. It's well, it's difficult again, but I'll get to it. There's all other topics online. There are a lot of branches in SD and a bunch of blogs and things. They almost talk all about the same perspective of system dynamics, from my understanding, right? And so I have the opportunity. I heard about WPI, and I said to me, I have to be there. But the person in the university where I studied my degree lost the paper, so I had to wait and wait. So while I was waiting, I studied first master in business administration, and then when it took like 2 years to have the translation of my cardex and such. So well, I waited a lot. When I started at the WPI, I realized that I wanted to be there a lot, but I didn't know why. Why did I wanted to pay that expensive tuition if I didn't know why I wanted to study there? So I took a first course with Professor Pavlov. It was a wonderful course. I learned a lot with him. He sometimes he used the discussion forum to give us these questions, right? So to make us think. And then I took another course with Professor Warren. It was a great course, but as I told you earlier, I made a lot of bad decisions. At the same time, I took credits at the University of Bergen. So that wasn't a good, it wasn't good enough. It was a big mistake. That course in natural resource management, it's a good course. It's a little bit outdated, but I like it. I like the way they give the insights that we need to understand those resources. So at my current work, they asked me for more time, so I had to decide. And well, Aman has to do what Aman has to do, so I had to give up on school. So I even have a gift. This describes the decision that I took that year. So this is a gift, and this was me at that moment. So it felt like a lot of bad decisions, right? So I had two little setbacks until that day. So that failure took a lot of time to finally move on. So I tried to write a few things, trying to get to present new models, to take out of my head some things that I had seen. So I started to reject system dynamics. I was rejecting it because I didn't understand where I was going, what should I be doing. So I recall a quote from Jay Forrester on his site, autobiography. I think it's From the Ranch to System Dynamics or something like that. And he said, system dynamics takes time. So I stopped and decided to move on. So when the time came, I started to recall several documents, things that I had seen at WPI, quotes, models, and I finally get to one question. Could someone out there, outside of MIT, outside of WPI, outside of academia, outside of everything, be there as me, lost in system dynamics? Or does it exist a path that they can follow to find it more easy? So at this point, I tried to learn system dynamic. To this point, I tried it like a parrot, repeating. And I was like, Polly was a cracker. And trying to repeat. So I could make good copies of systems that I already saw, but that isn't modeling, right? So even if right now we have a lot of system dynamics practitioners, there are still problems we couldn't wanted to attend. Like imagine we could all wait until the next person that could solve climate change to go to MIT, but what about he doesn't? Or how about he doesn't have money, or he can't speak English, or and he doesn't even need to speak English. He just need to tell us how to solve the problem, right? How to address the thing. He must understand what is happening from within his essence. So if the world has to wait for an system dynamic savior, and he still has to pay high interest loans or attend to an Ivy League school, then the world is condemned, because we can't develop that kind of profile from nothing. I work at a company that is we fix and we sell air conditioning and refrigeration equipment. So the technical skills they have to use aren't available in our city. We have to develop them. So we take them from high school. We put them on our workshop, and we hope for the best. But not everyone wants to be a technician. So I see a similar right here. So if we're setting the ground rules to increase system dynamics acceptance in the world, we need more people on this boat, right? So I'm going to start with the next part. We need to make system dynamics as playing with music chords. There are a lot of chords in well now there are only 7 chords in music, right? And then you can scale them up and scale them down, but there are only 7 chords. There are a bunch of instruments, but there are only 7 notes, and with 7 notes you can perform any symphonic and orchestra, everything. So how could we develop? We have limited resources, and we have to be able to cope with a high competitive world. So we must kill every project that doesn't have the potential to become a champion, but we can't know what project can become a champion. That's well. And how does a new champion project looks like? Does it look like a project in which we are willing to collaborate, or we imagine changing diapers and preparing formula for the kid? So we're surrounded by a systemic world that must be seen in order to be intervened. There must exist billions of models, billions of systems that are important to first develop the skills of the system dynamicists for the future, and second, to place more champion projects in the more seniors line of action. That's like what we're doing here right now.
Paco, could you describe what you mean by champion project a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm going there. A champion project could be like the climate change model that you're using, that is being used right now. It's generally accepted model within or within system dynamics field, or like urban dynamics, or such things that could help the or field. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So to place more champion project. Well, a champion project could look like well, there is this movie about uh, the sword in the rock. I forgot how it's called in English, but it tells the story of the sword that the Excalibur sword. So the one that could raise the sword from the rock was going to be named uh, king for that place, right? So I think it's King Arthur's story. So there was this young small kid, and by accident he removes the sword from the stone, so he becomes king. So a champion project, it perhaps is a thing that doesn't look like a king, or doesn't look like a champion. We could imagine a champion like John Cena, or, well, perhaps he's outdated now, well, or such. So if I take a project to a person like Tim, and I want Tim to collaborate with me, or Paco, take my project with my mentor, it must be a champion project, because they need to want to collaborate, to engage with that model. So it's difficult to do that. So in place to take more champion projects to the more senior line of action, like for people like you or Rafat or Said, those who have to those persons who have experience in collaboration, so they could lead the creation of more sustainable policies or intervene our systems. So it's well, I'm going to say it out loud because it has only lived in my head. This is the first time that I'm going to say this. That it's the moment to discover new planets, new universes, new dimensions, but within our planet, within our universe, within our dimension. That only could be possible with the decision makers with non-ST or non-math or non-science profile. So we have to make a right turn to be able to do that. So to develop the habits and the capacity in ourselves, so those around us with a new approach could get into system dynamics more quicker, more easy, and with a steady pace, so they could grow in the field. So, well, I'm going to start, and the next image is the model I always. This is the dynamical hypothesis. It's well, I always use a story for this. So, unusual phenomenon happened. You are the only person there. It was an amazing glimpse. It only lasted for a second or two, and you wish you had your smartphone near. You hope to see it again. You go back to the place where you saw it, and again and over again, so you can see again what you just saw. While that happens, you make yourself a lot of questions. Was it real? What was it? And try to describe the scene. Then, because of destiny, you encounter again with the phenomenon. You gather more details of the moment and try to explain the phenomenon for yourself. And even without realizing it, you have a primitive model in your head. A primitive model is something that you don't even know it's a model, but it's there, and prepares a bunch of what if scenarios, so you have to use. Even babies do this. So I forgot to use the pencil here. So we are right here now. So something right here. Something that I saw creates interest, so I turned my sight to it. I observe, and when I observe, that creates an interesting thing. So I imagine like Isaac Newton sitting on the tree, and then the apple falling off. He must have seen that scene a bunch of times, a lot of times. And then one day he realizes that the apple fell off, and he perhaps was a funny story to someone, because he must have get there all excited, and the apple fell off. So the apple fell off. So what? The apple always falls off. Then he tried to describe what happened, and tried to well, have sense in his words. So that raised more interest. Well, how can I see this phenomenon again? So after you feel comfortable explaining the event to someone else, then you expect you expect them to see the same that you saw. After your explanation, you have some discussion with others that have seen it or think they know what happened. When you encounter the phenomenon, you had some knowledge. So what happened here is, as I described the phenomenon, then I try to explain it first to myself, then to others, a few others, and probably one person that is near that doesn't necessarily know what you're talking about. So then you go and discuss this to start a discussion, and at the same time you have build a model in your head, a primitive model, and then raise some understanding. I have three variables that I know that are controversial in this model. So I think that these three, I'm going to talk about them in the next slide, I think. So that creates more understanding, and as I understand more the issue, the problem, or the phenomena, or the case, or something, I can create knowledge. As I develop knowledge, the thing is that as knowledge increases, your interest diminishes, because you're depleting the elements available to understand or to create knowledge. When I have discussion, I find more interesting the thing, because, well, there are more points of view to the issue. So then I have an understanding gap. I'm going to do it in the next two slides, and I have faith, and now I'm going to talk about that in the next one. So oh, I can't remove the bar. So there are three controversial variables in this model. First, knowledge, in my view, from my point of view, it's something that is shallow, that it can create a deeper thought, but can help anyone to excel in a certain topic. It's like when you play a song from hearing. It is needed indeed. We need to develop more knowledge, but when it's assumed that we know everything, or that we have the knowledge of the thing, we stop seeing. We don't see again. We don't turn around and see again. The person assumed they have the knowledge, that understand, and that is a fatal combination. So understanding is it's deep. It enables a person, when he or she doesn't have formal education, it's more of an ancient tool. It's a thing that makes you do the things, even when you don't know how to call them, or how to calculate them. And without understanding, knowledge it is sterile. So then the third one is faith. So I don't even have an icon for this because it's not faith like the church or so. We need to see that as we need to see faith as the invisible force that make you create actions to get to an imaginary point that might exist or not. Epictetus said that the world turns aside to let any man pass who knows where he is going. This force has explicit effects on the person. This force makes them wake up early, stay up late night, go to the other side of the world to make impossibles, just to go farther than anyone else, to transcend in time, to make that imaginary point in time, make it real. When you have a compelling vision and you don't have actions, then what happens is that the vision isn't aligned to the person's, or as I wrote it here, the vision and the person's purpose is divergent. They are divergent, so he can't get there. He won't get there anyway. I put these three variables aside because I thought that there were the more difficult in this model. So far, you have to. I'm lost in the little bar that has the thing to. Okay. So here's the final hypothesis. So in the left side we have a blue structure that is or latent structure. Everything that happens here happens inside the person, the observer, the learner, the student, the professor. This is an internal force. In some cases, it's unstoppable. It's almost an R cycle, the whole thing. So when it's ignited, nothing can stop it. It's going to grow and grow and grow. This sector describes the elements from within that acts like a motor. I think that with a small amount of energy can create a huge amount of work. It all starts with interest. A good day, an apple fell from the tree, hit Newton's head, and the rest became history. It all started with a phenomenon. It occurred, someone saw it, and wondered. Once the phenomenon exists, then it has to be observed again and again to be able to describe it and all this stuff. This creates a reinforces our loop. This far, we have only endogenous variables and depend on the individual's mindset and purpose. The red structure happens in the exterior. It is the manifest structure of the system. It is the result of having to compare the new knowledge to previous existing knowledge, like what we're doing right now. If this breaks status quo or changes the system or previous knowledge, as more novel it is, it has to make more validation cycles. When this model is expanded, we could add cost for the cost that we have to pay to have access to the available research, publication costs, and everything else. So this is the model. I want to wait a second here if you want to ask a question or two, and then I'll continue.
First of all, this is really interesting, Paco. On the slide previous where you had the word faith, one of the words that came to my head was impetus. IMPETUS, and I can put it in the chat, but you're talking about this invisible force that moves things and causes things to be moved. Unfortunately, impetus doesn't have any better icon than faith. I looked online quickly to see if there was an image, but I like this concept of an invisible, we know it pushes us, but you can't measure it, taste it, see it. You know, it's an impetus or faith. I like that concept from a latent structure because it goes a long way. And then how does that relate specifically into this area? I was looking for, and maybe I missed it, where that impetus is driving as a sort of a reinforcing effect to drive you forward to seek these things out.
Okay. Okay.
So where would you put faith on this?
Okay.
The thing is, B13.
Yeah, the thing
that red arrow in B13 goes to faith.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. Good. Okay. I was looking all over to find it, and for some reason my eye went right over it. Okay, that makes sense. Great.
Oh, I also would like to say something. I apologize. I forgot to unmute myself, and then somebody came by because I'm in an open area in this hotel, and then I didn't want to have that conversation on this meeting recording. So I apologize, Paco. I didn't introduce you, but I was going to introduce you and say that you're presenting this at CLADS 2019, the 17th Congreso Latinoamericano y Encuentro Colombiano de Dinámica de Sistemas. I apologize, my Spanish is not that good.
Yeah,
and,
I know you practiced.
Yes, I apologize. There were like multiple things that happened during that time frame, and thank you, Tim, for intervening. But I also was curious, can we use the term motivation not over faith, but instead of faith? Is that another term that can be used?
Oh, well, perhaps. I don't know, because, faith creates that motivation. I really didn't want it to put it this way, because I know that sometimes it can be controversial, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing was that I think motivation depends more on others, depends more on the external, from someone from the outside. So
self-motivation.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, Paco, and please correct me, this faith is literally at the heart of your experience. It's what's driving you to go through this experience writ large that you're doing. It's the impetus or the motion that's keeping you moving in this effort, correct?
That's correct. I don't know why I don't remember why I draw it outside of the heart, but yeah, that's one part.
Yep.
So when I see a phenomenon that I never saw, I want to tell everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's something unique, it's something new, it's something that doesn't exist. So when the visibility of the research that is available, when I see that and there, I think anyone could, that was already discovered, right? I see faith like the force that moved Galileo to take the eyepiece and put a little piece of tube to form a telescope and see the stars. Everyone saw the stars before, but he was the only one who could see further in the stars to realize that, well, we weren't the center of the universe. If someone else would already told him, I already saw the stars and that's nothing new there, he probably said, oh, okay, I'll just continue my life, but nothing happened or such. Or imagine Darwin when he said he's traveled to Galapagos to discover evolution. He didn't know what was he going to discover. He knew that that place was special in somehow, and well, nobody stopped them from being there. So even perhaps he was stubborn, he didn't have faith. I don't know. I couldn't know. But when I see that concept, like that force that moves me around, I have a lot of I have my boss, and my boss always is helping me to get motivated. But the thing is that if the thing that we need to do doesn't go with my purpose, well, that's impossible. I'm not moving. So when I have the vision and the right, I can create the right steps to get there. It's difficult to understand. And as I told earlier, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with everything else. It's just a force that acts inside of us. And anyone else? We're good through here. So I would lie if I said that what we're going to see here is actually a novelty. All the tools that we're going to see here, you already saw them. So well, we have to observe, we have to describe, we have to explain, we have to model, we have to discuss. And all these things will help us to see further in the system. To observe is by far the most tool to get. It biases, our biases change our sight. We can't see what we haven't seen yet. We can't. So if we have to see at 1,000 feet, then we need a special kind of sight. The Greeks call it kataskopos. It's viewing from the upside, and it was reserved for the gods because they had a lot for birds and for mountaineers. To see is different than observe. We see all the time. We only observe when our attention is on what we are seeing. So every challenge that I have in system dynamics, everyone or the person that I'm with says, "Oh, go take a step back. You have to be more far from the problem, from the system." But that is, as I said, the most difficult tool to have. Our next tool is to describe. We use paragraphs to describe it. That it's always useful. It's one of the commonest tools. Yes. We use CLDs, time graphs, diagrams, other kind of multimedia to this purpose. It allows our peers to see the same thing that we saw, to get our own or same perspective. It's difficult to. Okay, our biases don't allow us to see the same thing. Then we have to model. We use primitive models. Those only exist on our head. We make them since we are born, because even when we are just hours from that moment, we are testing our abilities to this model. We're telling us if questions and answering with actions that modify our world. And then we could use stack and flows, because if a model doesn't exist in stack and flows, then it's only system thinking, right? Then the purpose of modeling is to understand that it's really what is really happening. Our biases makes us to assume that we understand what's happening, and actually observe. It's one of the core concepts on TPS, on Toyota Production System. So we have to first observe the event to model. There's not a straight line in these tools. We use them and we bounce in all of them, and we go back and forward. It's not a linear thing. So then we go to explain, we show and tell, and right now I'm telling you. I'm going to show the model in a second, with the purpose of hearing or talks out loud, because in our head, everything has a meaning and has sense. The other person doesn't have to understand the topic, but do have to understand the method in this tool. Is needed to show all the utterances of the process. And we have to go and fail early and fail often, because if not, then the idea would be too big, too large, and the setback would actually be difficult for us to stand out again. Then we discuss it with a pro. We take the model to the prospect to a champion project with a pro, a system dynamics practitioner, or a field expert like Rafat, like Tim. Then we discuss the prime objective. Always is to learn, not to be right. As I present this to you, I know that it could have a lot of fails and biases and such. So, well, I was trying to get to this moment. I think we all have waiting for it. So wait for it and wait for it. I'm going to change my screen. Okay, you can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, this was the Stellar Architect document that I wrote last year for Puebla, but I got sick a month before to attending to Puebla, so I had to take it. But
Paco.
Yes.
I don't see the Stellar Architect model, actually. I see the slides.
Okay, I have to. There?
Yes, yes, I see it now.
Okay, so this is the model I wanted to, it was written for Puebla, as I told you. It has all the same, well, almost the complete document that I sent. Yes, all the things that we already saw, but it has this thing. This is our main window. So it has a lot of policies. Would you like to see first yeah, better. Okay, this is the model. Oh, okay, this is the model. It has a lot of policies. It wasn't easy to accomplish it. I have my mentor he was there the whole process. The left panel, the left sector is the learning engine, the 4 tools, the 5 tools. Then there is knowledge and there is understanding, and there is the academia, or the place where we stock all the available research. So I'm going to go to the, okay, this is the dashboard again. So they are prepared. Okay, so I prepared 3 case studies. So the first one is equilibrium, because I was taught to do equilibrium first.
Oh, we can't see the dashboard.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
There?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So first we have equilibrium, that's the first case. Then I'm going to say that we're going to increase some variables. We increase the ability of the student to have more interest, to have more understanding, to have more knowledge. That actually goes a little bit Then we use creative destruction and try to compensate. Every one of these policies is made right here, like in 130. Then we go and develop the habits to observe, to describe, to discuss, to explain, to model as a conscious process. And here we have a better tool. And then I'm going just to adjust the time, not to do it on the same moment, but it actually goes earlier. And so well, you can paint anything right here, right? So this is what happens with the interest in the thing that it's observed. You can see it on the available research. Available research is what we can go and buy in Wiley or such. This is what happened with knowledge, and this is what happens with understanding. The habits and behaviors, so we can move out all the variables. We can turn it off and on. So, okay, again, this is the first case, and we say, okay, let's increase the carrying capacity of the students. Let's increase the interest that they can get. If I only get 15 seconds, I need more. If I'm going to increase the amount of understanding and of knowledge that they have or that they could have, and these are the results. So then I wonder what would happen if I had a student that is not an A student. It's like a straight A's student, or well, one of those. So I prepared again the case. I left the last run with the adjusted time and the 4 things on. Then I went to go and said, okay, let's say that it's a straight A student. So, oh no, that it has just 25% from that A. It's a little bit, well, no. Well, we're just adjusting the current capacity and taking out 25%. And if we take out only 10%, then we will have this. If we take only 5%, then we have this. And if we take out nothing, then we got this. So the thing is that we don't need, or where I was going with this is that we don't need to have all straight A students to increase the amount of available research. All straight A students are something that it's well, difficult to get. There is a very expensive and not available resource. Yes?
I just wanted to let
Yes,
you know that there's 5 minutes left in your presentation. 5 minutos.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Oh, what's that?
Okay.
5 minutos, right?
Cinco, yes. Okay. Then on the case study 3, we just make a comparison with the variables on and the policies to develop habits on and off and such. So there is for the several variables. So I'm going to change again from screen. I wanted to give it more time to the model, but well.
Quick question, Paco. Do you have a place where this model is hosted on Stella that if we wanted to explore it and perhaps interact, there's a location for it?
I posted it last year in Exchange, the site for Stella Online. The thing was that when I didn't want to go to Puebla, then I took it off. So I'm going to publish it, but I think that next week that I have the final version for Colombia, for Bogota, and I will let you know. I think we
Great, because I think if you send the link to Christine and then Christine returns it to the mailing list, then everyone can have a chance to maybe play with it and use it themselves or read all that documentation you have in there as well.
Okay, that would be great. So, okay, you can see my slides there, right?
Yes, the slide says conclusions.
Yeah, so this method enables our students and to write in a specific way. A more experienced system dynamicist can take the insight to the next level. It takes into account that the thing that creates understanding is a big R cycle that depends on the student or person. The new system dynamics mentor has to understand the leverage points that he can manage to create the more understanding on knowledge. It doesn't matter if the student is highly ranked, only needs to know the basic chords to play a music, to build a model, to raise insights to the surface, so he can pass it on to an expert. And at the end of, only the experts can tell if the model is adequate for the task issue in the use of the model as well. And we need to be able to help validating those. So the next steps, I was suggested to add a chart like this one. It's to understand if the model can take us to a better or a more sustainable scenario. So well, the next steps, I leave it the qualitative method for grading the models. Within this method would give us far more insight and could be the initial step for using system dynamics with machine learning and artificial intelligence to increase the speed that the real issues arise. There is a version 2 of this model. There is a version 3 that is quite more simple, but we can't be there yet. Well, I think that almost this is the right thing to assume. All models are wrong, some are useful, and that's the fall. Well, thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Paco.
Going to be the 13th, I think, or 14th of November 14th in Bogota, presenting this as a poster. So, and I hope that when you play with it, you can send some feedback so I could well, give a better presentation there.
Yes, I also wanted to say some stuff about the chat. So I have been monitoring the chat, but I just didn't want to interrupt so much. And I will email Kalichi ODM. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name correctly. I'm not so sure how to pronounce your name, but
That's fine.
Yes, you're also working on a similar topic, and I think both of you could have great conversations through email or maybe here. I don't mind waiting a little bit more, but I would actually like to attend some of the sessions at this conference. But okay, I'm getting distracted. And Kareem said that the quote is actually by George Box, not John Sturman.
Oh, I saw it. I got it from the Business Dynamics book. So, but okay, I'll correct that.
Yeah, no problem. And Kalichi also said that he would like to learn SD like we learn music. And the funny side note is, right before this meeting started, I talked to Paco about how I'm writing a song about system dynamics and other models, just because I'm a really random person. And when someone mentioned before about the Forrester seminar series, I'm actually working on transcribing that, so it'll be easier to translate it. So I hope that we can work together and do that as a community. Any other questions? Oh.
Yes.
Not a question, just saying I have to depart, but I'm really interested in the presentation, and please let me know when the model is online, Paco. Thank you very much for presenting today.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Thank you, Paco. This is great.
Oh, who is this calling?
Yeah, this is Rafat.
Oh, hi, Rafa. Good morning.
Yeah, I need really to have a deeper look and read about what you did, and really nice presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I'll manage to get the rating for you.
Yeah, this would be great.
Yes. I also would like to say you have great visuals.
I have great what?
Visuals, the pictures.
Oh. Okay.
Yes, exactly. I mean, did you use Stella Architect for the visuals? Because I really don't know if that's like.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been on Stella, but I cheated with Photoshop. So, yeah, but the model is running in Stella. So yes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the model structure and see which are the stocks and which are the flows, because I think it's important to see that in order to understand the policies and what you do for the testing.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
That's I like your visuals. They're really great. It's very simple and very eye-capturing.
Thank you. That was what I was going for, because a poster has to be captivating in that.
Although I would suggest
yes.
Showing a dynamic hypothesis at the top level first, then show the detail, not the other way around, because it makes it easier to see things and relate things. That's a choice.
Okay. Okay. Then the structure first, right?
No, you see the heart and the oval shape. They represent two interacting sectors, or so sometimes it's easier when somebody sees the top level and then go into detail and go up and down.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Don't want to take more time, but it's a very interesting presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rafa. Well, it's been an honor. I hope that I have all my questions answered in my head, so I could go to Bogota and well, make a good job.
So this will be presented as a poster?
Yeah, as a poster there. And I think I'm going to take my iPad in so I could show the model there in online on Stella. I hope that I can still do that. I haven't tried.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And if you can walk the people through the loops one by one, then it'll be easier, because despite the clarity of the loops, it's easier if you navigate one loop at a time, and so that would be useful when you're doing the poster, I guess, or easier to do when you're doing the poster, because people are standing and you're explaining.
Oh, okay. I see. It's gonna be a first, so yeah.
That's excellent.
It's awful for me right now, but yes.
Yeah. I do have a question for you about faith.
Okay.
So the variables that are boxed in blue, these are stocks?
Yes. Oh, well, if you
or
want,
no?
You can see here is the there are more stocks than the CLD is showing. Oh, do you see this the screen for the?
No, I see the introduction.
Okay, now?
Yes.
Yes. So, okay, there are more stocks than the CLD shows. I only wanted to show the main two ones, that is knowledge and understanding, and available research, because those are the three that are fighting for resources.
What about faith? Is it a variable or a stock?
Yeah, I only accounted as a variable. I didn't want it to. I don't. I thought that if I take it as a stock, I would have to then account for how to increase faith, like meditation and such. So
yeah. Okay. Thank you. I have to think about that, and how the relations are, what the connecting causality mean in that case to faith. If not, they're increasing or decreasing it.
Oh, okay.
Paco, I have a question.
Okay.
Please, can you go back to the causal diagram?
Of course.
Because I mean, I did see that research visibility is kind of have a negative relationship with faith. So trying to understand the rationale behind that choice.
Oh,
so available. Mm-hmm.
What I saw is that when you know what a thing is called, you don't longer ask. You don't ask anymore. So so you have faith only when you think that it's something new, that it's something that the world hasn't seen. That's the way that I thought of this.
Okay.
So when I have more research available to see, then that biases my understanding and limits it.
Okay. So I think it's probably me not maybe grasping the meaning of faith as used in this model, right? So probably you try to explain the word faith so that they understand it in the concept of it being like the vision of an unseen thing, motivation to do something that has not yet been done.
Okay. Yeah, it's not the first time that I have problem with that variable. Even when it was I was writing it, I had the same questions, but but I don't have all the answers right now. I'm still trying to fighting with myself to get that to the surface. Right now, as I said in the presentation, is like a force. It's an invisible force that when we see something, even when we see something in our head, takes the steps, makes the steps, makes the actions that I need to get there. Like I remember when I was reading about Nikola Tesla, and he was in the beach, and then he saw his mother. He stand up, he took a little stick and started to draw in the motor in the sand. So a lot of years had to pass before he could actually build the model. He actually have the resources to build the model. But when he finished it, he realized that it had worked like he was like in his head. So I think that if he didn't have that faith, imagine he was fighting with Edison. So if he didn't have that faith of what he was doing, of what he was building, then he would, it already exists something that does that. I don't have to work anymore. So I'll just leave that to the experts.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
So, Paco, in your abstract, you did talk about the educational system in Mexico and how you probably are trying to use system dynamics to include new or maybe integrate. I think you said it was kind of like old abilities.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm trying to
understand.
grasp how you used, yeah.
Well,
how
I started
you use this model to.
I started my high school at age 26, and then my bachelor degree when I was 28. So I could see in firsthand what was how they were teaching everything, like calculus. They only teach formulas, and they only teach I insist like a parrot. Repeat, 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 repeat. And yes, okay, the parrot can talk. He can talk, but he doesn't know how to use the phrases, the context, what is behind of that. So I had the fortune to have all the other professors and to have, well, some kind of help in all my passing through the college and stuff. So yeah, when I finally met system dynamics, I thought, oh, you need to have this in school. So I read a paper from Tim Joy. It was presented, I think, in '96 or so. It is part of a book from Donella. Donella.
Donella Meadows.
No, I don't think.
Meadows.
I don't think it was Donella. Diana Fisher, and on that paper he presented the thing that he used in his school. He had I think it was from K-12 students, and he uses a notebook for the students to start using system dynamics within a notebook. They only do well, they don't do the math, right? They can't model or simulate the results. But with this approach, they could learn faster than before. So in a certain,
I think that should be Barrow Richmond.
No, it was Timothy Joy.
Okay.
Not Barry Richmond. Yeah.
Oh.
So he introduced system dynamics to a biology session and to a biology class, and they ended up all the syllabus in like, well, they left like 2 months before the time was due, because the others. But and then with or something. So when I read that, I thought, oh, there are more ways. There are a lot of ways to do this. If you introduce this, I know that this isn't a novelty, but if you introduce this to physics, to chemistry, to all other fields, everything that you need to do is easier. I even have a model for cockroaches because they are, well, difficult to exterminate. And if the person doesn't realize that he is doing the problem, then you can spend all your money in pesticides and nothing will change. So Well, you can introduce this to a household or not just business, because when it's just business, then people think, oh, I already know that. Okay, leave it there. I already know what to do. We have here a model that it's for supply chain, and when we take it to the experts in the products, they, oh no, that doesn't work. I already know what to do, what to buy, what to everything. But they are planning for the day before, not for the month that it's coming. So it's well, something like that.
Yeah, Paco, I think you have done a great job with this model, and especially with the challenges that you had to overcome to learn system dynamics. I also will like to, in case you are not aware of the student chapter, system dynamics students chapter, we are currently trying to see how we can make system dynamics maybe available to more students, and then especially in terms of developing the knowledge in system dynamics, because I think we have a lot of people at the beginner level of system dynamics and a lot of them at the expert level of system dynamics, but just a few of I mean, we kind of have like a disconnect between the various levels that one can attain in system dynamics. And so maybe such ideas like how one can build on the knowledge of system dynamics and gaining more expertise will be helpful. So maybe we can also connect via email after this presentation.
Yes.
Probably see what we can. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Count with that. One of the issues that I found in the early stages of system dynamics was that the software is so expensive. So when I finally could have a license of Stella, I love that software. That it's a great software. I don't love the online version because I can't do those interfaces, and I love to make that kind of stuff. But yeah, those were the initial things. I think that is CLX, Creative Exchange, Creative Learning Exchange, or something. They have an arrangement with IC Systems, and they can use the pro version of Stella Online for their students or the people that work with them, and that's a way. But I really miss my interfaces when I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I concur with you. We could be doing something as well. The thing is, there are a lot of structures that can meet a lot of the issues that we have right now. Not the archetypes, because the archetypes make the people think that they already know what's happening, and with these structures in stocks and flows, you can use them like CHORDS. I think I saw someone like a month or two that was Stella was presenting modeling with molecules or something like that, modeling with molecules, and they used a lot of knowledge to build a model. But the thing is that you have to be proficient with their method before you can even get to model that way. So it's another class, another course, another bunch of time. And the thing is that perhaps you only need one simple structure, one stock to understand the issue that you have. The thing is that if we need people to be here, we need something that it's more easy, more and at the same time that only takes the knowledge to a certain level where a pro can reach it and well, take it to the next level. If in the student chapter, I think that would be great. You're going to have the attention from the experts and such. Well, I think it's cool.
Yes, yes. I agree with you, Paco. I mean, just like with this model you presented, having models in stock and flows, we typically run into the issue of quantifying the variables and maybe choosing the right units. And I'm sure, I don't know if you had that challenge when you trying to convert these causal loop diagrams to the stock and flow diagram, because I mean, there are several tests that when a model becomes a stock and flow model that you have to try to pass, right? So, and then, you know, that's like one of the challenges that one may face when trying to have all models as stock and flows, so that we can really maybe see the value or count such knowledge as
You get to a point that everything is important, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how to discriminate one variable or one stock or one flow. Yeah,
Yes.
I've been there.
Yes. So I just want to say I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll email you after this because Saeed Lingarudu's presentation is soon. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I will also have to leave now. I never knew that it's kind of last time. Paco, thanks for the presentation, and then I will send you an email after this so we can connect offline.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.